A controversial Trump-backed 28-point peace plan aimed at ending the Russia-Ukraine war was leaked mid-November. Now, it immediately drew backlash for heavily favoring Russian demands. This initial proposal was reportedly drafted during private meetings in Miami between Jared Kushner, a private citizen, Donald Trump's son-in-law, and a Kremlin insider.
Who's under sanctions, I understand, according to reports.
Negotiations that U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio was reportedly totally unaware of until the plan was leaked. Now, following this fierce resistance that labeled the deal a Russian capitulation, U.S. officials have overhauled the framework into a 19-point version, less favorable to Moscow. Now, while President Zelensky has signaled that Ukraine is ready to move forward with this revised plan, pending some final discussions, the Kremlin is now resisting these new terms, leaving the agreement in a fragile state. How was that, Dad? Was that a good summary?
That's as good as anything I've heard. NBC should hire you.
Oh, cool.
For sure. And, this is a model of how not to work a peace.
Right.
You don't start by capitulating to the aggressor, to the tyrant, to the dictator, to the murderous Vladimir Putin, who's not our friend, Sam.
No.
His aim is to destroy and destabilize democracy throughout the world and to join with China in a new world order in which these two dictatorships dominate the world and America and other democracies are tossed into the trash bin of history. That's who we're talking about here. We're not talking about someone who has our best interests in mind. And does he have Ukraine's best interest in mind?
Of course not.
Of course not. So what does Trump do? Goes to the Russians. Doesn't bring in the Europeans, who have even more of a stake in this, right, than we do, because they're more subject to Russian aggression. They're right there. Doesn't bring in the Ukrainians. Has a private citizen, Jared Kushner, who has no role in the government and has massive conflicts of interest because he's always looking out, right, for his own financial well-being. And somehow Kushner and a negotiator who does have some standing, Witkoff, in the government, but has very little experience, meet with this sanctioned Russians and come up with this 28-point peace plan. Call it the Russian wish list.
Oh, that's a good one, Dad.
Yeah. Nothing in this really hurts Russia. A lot of it helps it, and a lot of it hurts Ukraine. For example, for their aggression, for their launching the worst war in Europe since World War II, a war that's claimed hundreds of thousands of casualties. They get rewarded.
What?
They get rewarded. They get territory beyond what they hold on the battlefield. They get further rewarded. Remember what I always say, if you want to understand what Trump is doing, what do you follow?
The money.
Follow the money. Well, there's a lot of money at stake here, $300 or so billion in frozen Russian assets, which all should go to Ukraine, given that the great bulk of it is held by Europe. But under this plan, there'll be kind of a joint U.S. Ukrainian venture in Ukraine in which the U.S. and could be the Trump organization taking pieces of this. Kushner's business gets 50%. Plus, as I understand it, from the leaks, another $100 billion in joint ventures between the United States and Russia. So they get rewarded.
What?
They get rewarded.
Oh, my God. It's sometimes hard to wrap my mind around how the American people don't see this and go, what in the God? You're talking about your son-in-law, who's a private citizen, negotiating with a Russian to make you all richer and to strike business deals in a war. I mean, this is nuts, but, again, it's complicated foreign policy stuff that people don't pay attention to. But
it shouldn't be complicated.
But if you did pay attention to it, I can't imagine how you could look at this and not just be like, this is the most morally corrupt, financially corrupt nonsense I've ever seen.
Absolutely. But it's nonsense with a purpose, to benefit Putin,
right,
and to put money into the pockets of the very rich.
Right.
But I'm not stopping here. It gets even worse.
Oh, my God.
Right? Ukraine, according to reports, has an armed forces of about 900,000, which is incredible given a small country. Under this 28-point plan, they have to reduce it down to 600,000, reduce it by 300,000 troops, or 33%. Plus, there are certain restrictions on the kinds of weapons they can deploy. So when you diminish the armed forces of Ukraine and give Russia a lot of additional territory from which they can launch operations, plus recognition of their steal of Crimea going back to 2014, what does that foretell for the future?
Not good.
Not good. It makes it so much easier for Russia to do what it hasn't been able to do for these several years, and that is conquer the rest of Ukraine. And you think Putin is going to worry about Trump stopping him from doing that?
Probably not.
Yeah, there may be some vague security guarantees in here, but Putin knows that Trump is not going to stand up to Putin's further aggression in Ukraine. And you know what, Sam?
What?
It gets even worse.
No.
Yes. Under this so-called peace plan, I call it the Russian wish list.
Let's clarify real quick. You're talking about the original
28-point plan.
But that plan has been overhauled into this new.
Well, I'm going to get
version.
to that.
Okay.
You're absolutely right.
Yes.
But I want people to understand what a capitulation this was.
Right.
And remember, Trump first says, you got to adopt this plan by Thanksgiving,
right.
Or, you risk losing American support. It wasn't
God.
as if he just floated this as something Putin wanted but didn't have any kind of an American imprint.
Right.
Nonsense.
Yeah, tell the people how bad it was.
Yeah, last point. And I'm not sure I've covered everything, but I've hit the highlights. Ukraine has to put into its constitution that it can never join NATO. That is, it could never get the maximum security guarantees from the NATO partners, including the European nations and the United States. Never join NATO. Talk about an infringement of a nation's sovereignty, putting that into the Constitution.
Right.
Now, of course, with Trump, nothing is ever set. No promises ever stick, right?
Right.
Look at the tariffs. Now you see them, now you don't. Now you see them again, now you don't.
I don't even know what the status of the tariffs
Nobody
is right
knows
now.
what the status of the tariffs are. They've whipsawed so many times. So this is now whipsawed. Apparently, finally, the Ukrainians were brought into this, and the 28-point plan has now been whittled down to a 19-point plan, which I haven't seen. Have you seen it, Sam?
I don't think anybody has.
I don't think anyone's seen it, so we don't know what's in it. But it is certainly more favorable, apparently. According to reports, to the Ukrainians.
And Zelensky has already said that he has looked at it and he would be willing to move forward with this new 19-point version. So you got to think
he said he's willing to move forward exactly as it is.
No, he did say that there were some things that he would want to change.
Right.
But the fact that he's even willing to move forward with it shows, I think, that it's a lot better than that original Trump-backed Kushner.
Apparently much better, but it takes two to tango, right?
Right.
And what's been the Russian response to the revision?
No, thank you.
No, thanks. We're no way near signing off on this. And if you don't believe us, we're going to launch one of the most murderous, destructive air attacks on Kyiv and other targets in Ukraine, targeting vital energy infrastructure and civilian areas, just to prove, we can do it. And to slap in your face whatever you might be doing in whittling down our initial plan. So who knows where this is going to go. But so far, it has been an absolute fiasco. You cannot work out peace this way. You've got to bring the two parties together and let the two parties work it out. Maybe they can't. Maybe there isn't a peace solution here. Maybe the war has got to grind on even longer before a solution acceptable to both sides can be reached. We've seen in past wars how disastrous it is to have a so-called peace that's so one-sided, such as the armistice after World War I that sowed the seeds for the vastly more destructive World War II. So at this point, it's not clear. Now, one thing I do firmly believe, I've been studying Trump forever. He doesn't care, bottom line, really what the terms are. I mean, he certainly tilts towards Putin. But what do you think he wants out of this, Sam?
Money
and credit. He wants deals like he always does. He always wants money. And he's desperate for that Nobel Peace Prize, right? He wants to at least equal Obama.
Right.
So he doesn't really, in the end, care that much about the terms.
Right. He just wants it over, and then he
just wants it over, and he wants the deal, and he wants the credit for it. Thanks for watching our video. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and become a member today.